Yeah, she wants to be out and see people. It's better than being up in my attic.
Okay, let me do the clap.
He's probably
Okay.
in another body somewhere.
It is definitely not
Yes.
right. Are we spelling? Do we spell?
Yeah, we can spell. You want to share mine?
Oh, I have mine.
You do?
Oh, it's on his desk. Should I get it, or do we just share? Oh, you get mine. I prefer, I'm a holder.
You're a holder.
I can't help it. Especially if we're gonna try and be perfect.
Yeah. If you change a word, we'll keep going.
You can
Changing the genders
Yeah.
anyway. Yep, yep.
Okay.
Just on the marks, go away. We'll spell when we introduce ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, Matt, you can spell your last name as the witness.
Okay, so I'll say I am the witness, Daniel Cross, Cross, basically.
Beautiful.
Is that how you would like me to
Lovely.
frame it? Okay, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Testing.
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 You got it's kind of awkward with the wires
Okay.
on the page. So we're on the marks.
Okay.
5 seconds of silence. Did you clap? Yeah, you clapped.
Yeah, 5 seconds of nothing now.
This is a 4-voice homicide investigation transcript at 160 words per minute. For the people, I am Mr. Gilbert, Gilbert.
I am the witness, Daniel Cross, Cross.
I am the court.
For the defense, I'm Ms. White, White.
And I will begin in direct examination. Ready? Begin. Detective, did you personally advise the defendant of his Miranda rights at the scene?
I certainly did.
Was your partner present when that occurred?
Yes, we were all in the same room.
Where was that?
It was in the kitchen area. We told him we wanted to ask him some questions about the events of the evening, and he agreed to talk to us.
You said that you briefly spoke to him at the scene. Approximately... You want to hear the Korean national anthem?
I was thinking, remember when you did the little slating?
Yeah.
Can you not put their names? Put Mr., Ms.,
I don't want to get fit, like, it's so
I'll ask,
fancy
yeah.
that they won't like it. You know what I mean? Like, I can do anything I want, but, like,
For ours,
depends.
for Brian, you could do that because sometimes they you know what I mean?
Well, you still want to know the designations, though, don't you?
That is the designation.
Well, I meant they still want to know, like, if they're defense or plaintiff. Or...
No, we don't care about defense or plaintiff or void. That doesn't matter.
I'll ask,
whatever
I'll
you
ask
do.
Karen Soul.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
To
Yeah, because
decide.
defense and plaintiff doesn't matter where they sit.
It's up to Karen.
It's up to
Yeah.
Karen at this point. Yeah.
5 seconds again, please.
Are we introing
Yeah,
it?
we have to do everything again.
Yeah.
I can't really, I don't want to stick it together.
This is a 4-voice homicide investigation transcript at 160 words per minute. For the people, I am Mr. Gilbert, Gilbert.
I am the witness, Daniel Cross, Cross.
I am the court.
For the defense, I'm Ms. White, White.
And I will be in direct examination as we begin. Ready? Begin. Detective, did you personally advise the defendant of his Miranda rights at the scene?
I certainly did.
Was your partner present when that occurred?
Yes, we were all in the same room.
Where was that?
It was in the kitchen area. We told him we wanted to ask him some questions about the events of the evening, and he agreed to talk to us.
You said that you briefly spoke to him at the scene. Approximately how long do you think you spoke to him at the table in the kitchen?
It was a short conversation. We initially wanted to obtain his name and whether he lived in the residence, if he knew who the victim was, things like that.
Did he identify the victim for you?
Yes, he did. He verified it was someone he knew.
Did he eventually provide you a name, or what was the description that he gave you?
Well, I asked him if he was a resident of the home.
Do you mean the defendant?
Yes, I asked him if he lived there, and he said yes. I then inquired about the victim laying on the floor. He said he was a friend.
Objection, Your Honor. I object to the use of the word victim.
State your grounds.
Assumes a fact not in evidence at this time.
Well, it is non-responsive after the word yes. Next question.
Did you ask the defendant for his driver's license?
Yes, he gave me his wallet and I removed his license.
Okay, how long would you estimate that you spoke to the defendant at the scene?
About 15 minutes.
And who was present during that conversation?
Defendant Hilton, my partner, and Deputy Brown was also present for part of the time.
When you spoke to the defendant in the kitchen, did you question him at all regarding the facts of the case?
In my mind, all my questions would be regarding the facts of the case.
I understand. My question mainly goes to the facts involving how there happened to be a body in the hallway.
The only information that we were gathering at the scene was identification of the victim and the defendant who lived in the home and a very rough timeline. The questions pertaining to exactly how the crime happened were asked back at the station.
Let's move to the interview at the station then. Was that taped in any way?
Yes, the room has video equipment and recording equipment.
Is it standard practice to use that room for interviews?
There are a few rooms in the station that we use for that or questioning suspects.
Who was present at that interview?
My partner and I were the two deputies present.
What time did you start the interview of the defendant that night?
Well, we really didn't talk to him at the station until early the next morning.
Okay.
We started the interview at 2:15 a.m.
Is that common for you to begin an interview of a suspect in the early morning hours?
Well, it all depends on when the crime happens.
So, there are no set hours for when the interviews take place?
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant.
Your Honor, I think the defense is going to raise a question as to the time of the questioning.
I object to Mr. Gilbert addressing this in front of the jury. I would prefer if we could approach sidebar, Your Honor.
Well, no speaking objections in front of the jury. Overruled at this time. We can address it at the recess if counsel wants to put something on the record.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Detective, is it true that you conduct your investigation when the crime happens and you don't delay until the morning to question a suspect?
That's true. Crime happens at all different times, and we begin our investigation as soon as we can.
Now, the interview with the defendant was taped?
That's correct.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to play the video for the jury of the defendant's interview.
All right, we can do that. Ms. White, do you have any questions at this time, or do you want to wait until the tape is played?
I do have a couple questions now, Your Honor, if that's permissible.
Okay. Any objection?
No.
Let's proceed with cross-examination.
Good morning, Detective.
Good morning.
I wanted to ask you a couple questions briefly before we view the tape of my client.
All right.
That night when you first spoke to my client at the residence, did you obtain information that he lived there?
Well, his driver's license listed a different address, but he said that he had moved into the home on West Haven about 6 months earlier.
Did you attempt to verify if the defendant resided there at all?
Absolutely we did, but that was later in the investigation.
I mean, before you left the home. Let me ask you a question first. Was the defendant arrested at the residence?
No, we asked him to accompany us down to the station for some questions.
Was he in custody at that time?
No, he was not arrested. We explained that we had some more questions and asked him if he would join us at the station.
Well, did he have a choice in whether to join you or not?
Yes, everybody has choices.
If he had refused to go to the bus station,
Objection calls for speculation and not relevant.
Sustained.
so Mr. Hilton was arrested at the station. Is that right?
After we spoke to him and interviewed him, that's right.
Is that something that we will see on the tape when we view it?
I think so. We conducted our interview, and it was several hours later that he was arrested.
How long did the interrogation last?
I believe it was about 3 hours.
During that time, did you advise the defendant of his Miranda rights?
Yes, I did. I had conducted that at the residence, and I did it again once we were in the interview room at the department.
Why did you do it twice?
Objection irrelevant.
Overruled.
That is just my practice. I wanted him to be clear that this was a serious matter, and that we wanted to make sure that he knew what was going on.
Speaking of that, let's talk about the fact that this interview occurred at 2:15 in the morning. Did you inquire when the defendant had last slept?
I believe that's on the tape later in the interview.
Since this happened so late in the evening when you were called out to the scene, when had you last slept?
Objection irrelevant.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I believe it is relevant for the officer's conduct.
Sustained. Next question, please.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Officer, I know that we are going to view the video in a few minutes, and then I'll definitely have further questions for you. But I wanted to ask you about the condition of my client when you first observed him.
You mean at the scene?
Yes. When you first saw him in the kitchen, what was his demeanor?
He was sitting at the table and appeared to be calm.
You testified earlier that he was speaking to a deputy. Did you overhear their conversation?
No, ma'am, not the contents, but I could hear voices.
Were they speaking in a normal tone of voice or an excited tone of voice?
It was just a conversational tone of voice, nothing angry or excited.
Lovely.
The bus station, Gina?
Bus station.
What did I say?
So, where'd you come up with
The
that?
bus station? It was the station.
Yeah,
the police
you
station.
gotta go to the bus station.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I'm like, we're fine.
Can we keep that?
Oh yeah, we don't care. It'll be a good trust your nuts exercise.
Take him to the bus station. You're trying to get him out of town. I was probably thinking that.
Yeah, well, sure.
Get him out of
We all do
town.
that.
I know, you're just thinking
I'm thinking of the story, and I'm thinking I'm taking him to
of
the
your
bus
kids
station.
living out. Yeah.
No, maybe he was
Is that it?
hot at the bus
For this
station.
one, yeah. Now you we'll do a three voice, so you don't have to read this.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, I'm
That's
gonna leave the
weird.
recorder running. I
Okay.
guess, 'cause,
Okay.
Why not?
You want to
Leave
we
this
gotta
running
switch
too.
close.
signs?
We're gonna squish closer to each other while we move that chair.
I'm gonna
There are no
just move
signs.
over here.
Oh, right. Oh, right.
The,
I guess.
Yeah, I'll put them in later.
We're gonna do.
Gina, you'll be the witness on this one, so
the
Steve,
monkey in the
you'll.
middle?
Yeah, let's get the chair off the podium.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You want to just switch chairs for?
Yeah.
It'll be easier if I take
Come on,
this.
take that one. Give me Cheyenne's money. I'm just reminding you.
Okay.
I'm telling you,
You know, it's a
get
bad time.
Venmo. It's so easy. I love it. It's an easy app too. You just put your account in once.
Okay, let me just make sure that nothing's in the frame.
And I'm Mr. Schwartz instead of.
Okay, now, and then at the end of it, you guys would, it'd be cool if you guys distributed yourselves evenly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
With Gina right in the center of the podium.
Where's the center, like here?
Right, yeah, right there.
Right where this thing
Yeah.
is. Really?
Okay.
And you don't have to, like, you can put a little air between you.
You wanna check the
Yeah, you guys can go off a little
microphone
bit.
here?
Side.
That did it.
Yeah, hang on, give me one sec first.
Okay, you're gonna use that one. So this one. Yeah, it's fine. We want to unplug the one we're not using.
Yeah.
This is mine. This is
Yeah, you don't want any extra
So it's this
microphones that
one?
are attached to something, they just make noise. Which one's the one that's not?
This one's mine. Yeah, so this one.
frame
Sure.
everything, make sure it looks
I'll share
nice.
Sure,
with
Steve.
him, I'll share with him.
Right. Put it down in the toward the middle of the dais, because the camera doesn't pick it up.
Make sure you guys are in the positions you want to be in.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to zoom in just a little bit.
You're Ms.
Yeah, so I'm a
Oh,
mister.
you're a mister.
I'm Victor Schwartz.
You
I'm
want to
Victor
scroll
Victor.
in more, the wires, you comfortable with the because it's nice having the wires loose.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Okay,
Fine.
well, I can zoom in. Just need to
This
adjust.
is taller than all of us.
Oh, hell, go down.
Oh, that was perfect.
Is that low enough?
You're, yeah.
You guys go higher.
Like, see no evil, speak no evil, and hear no evil.
I know I can go low. It's hard to go high.
We know you can too.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to hide it.
One sec.
Also on the marks. And
Give me one
I'm a
second.
mister, so if you have to address me, I'm not sure about that.
Victor.
Victoria.
This is perfect.
Victor who?
So
Well, I'm
weird.
Victoria Schwartz, so I'm Victor Schwartz. I'm James Garnett. Now, would you, didn't...
Oh, I didn't need to clap.
No, but would you turn the air off, the heat off? It didn't come on, it's...
But it probably will.
Probably would, yeah. As we're at the last
Right.
page of the...
Okay, kids.
Okay, 5
You should be
seconds.
lit when you want to do sound check. Just make sure that you're all hooked in.
Oh, yeah. Checkity check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Check, check,
Check, check.
Gina, say again.
check, check, check.
Oh, no wonder.
Oh, turn it off.
No,
You turned it. You had it
wrong way.
aimed down.
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Move speaks, and we can
Hello,
hear
hello.
you.
Yeah, they've been known not to.
Have they been done
Silence.
too? That would be more interesting.
Yeah, okay. 5 seconds of silence. This is the Suzanne Cole deposition, part 1, at 160 words per minute. I am the examining attorney, Mr. Schwartz, S-C-H-W-A-R-T-Z.
I am the witness, Suzanne Cole, C-O-L-E.
I am the plaintiff attorney, Mr. Werner. W-E-R-N-E-R.
Yeah. So,
That threw me off. You're the plaintiff
Just,
over
yeah,
there.
well,
That
the
threw me
plaintiff-
off.
yeah, it doesn't matter, because it's a depot.
So do we, so we don't have to designate
No,
ourselves
no.
as
Maybe
such?
not to Benson plaintiff, because I
Are you sure she doesn't want him designated? I mean, like, I know you're.
Well, we can, we just...
Yeah, but she
it's
just
fine.
do
It
it.
doesn't matter where we sit.
Yeah, it doesn't
So
matter
just
where we
say
sit.
plaintiff
Yeah,
attorney.
yeah, I'll say defense. Okay, good. Okay. One more time. This is the Suzanne Cole deposition.
Stop.
Oh. It's a new one.
Just picking up speed.
Couldn't quite get
Sounds
get
like, yeah.
on there. Like a lawnmower.
It just flew by. Oh, hold on, let me get rid of all this crap.
Back in the old building, we would have said Mrs. Patterson arranged that.
Uh-huh. She probably did. Okay.
Silence.
This is the Suzanne Cole deposition, part 1, at 160 words per minute. For the defense, I am Mr. Schwartz, S-C-H-W-A-R-T-Z.
I am the witness, Suzanne Cole, C-O-L-E.
For the defense, or plaintiff rather, I am Mr. Werner, W-E-R-N-E-R.
Do it again.
Cut.
Cut.
That?
Why are you reversed, by the way?
Because I'm...
She want it that way, or
No, she doesn't. Yeah.
does she have any preference? Are you sure, Karen?
No, I think as long as we're designated, as long as there's a sign.
So why don't we
Yeah.
just keep it like we normally do?
Alright,
Wanna
yeah,
do
I'm
plaintiff?
just saying, like, why are we messing with Karen?
Why don't you just be plaintiff?
No, I'm going to be Schwartz, though.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to say it doesn't matter, then it doesn't
No,
matter.
we'll just
Why
do-
don't you just say for the plaintiff on Mr. or for the
Because that's not what it says here.
Oh,
Defense, Mr. Schwartz. I'll put them up in signs, but I'll ask him.
Alright, yeah, I know. I just said if we mix them up, is she gonna be upset and like we have to redo it?
The
That's
way
my
she
question.
sits, I don't know how she sits her people, her students. But we normally don't, but it's not right or wrong, and I think people get
Yeah,
hung up
and
on
with
that.
this recent CSRs,
Why don't you just say, I'm Mr. Schwartz and you're Mr. Werner? We don't have to designate. plaintiff or defense, do we?
We don't. I mean, I'll find out.
It's gonna say it on the transcript. Okay, I'm just saying, like, I don't understand, like, why we're messing with it at all.
And then you could put the signs in front of us. You can do your secret special
I
signs.
understand that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying I don't understand, like, why we're messing with you over when nobody asked you. I don't get
Well, I mean, like this is a CSR program. Look at the recent CSRs.
it. Okay.
I don't know where they were sitting.
So are we identifying ourselves as
Yeah.
plaintiff and
Yeah.
defense? Okay.
And spell it. Hey, take 3. This is the Suzanne Cole deposition, part 1, at 160 words per minute. For the defense, I'm Mr. Schwartz, SCHWARTZ.
I'm the witness, Suzanne Cole, COLE.
I am the plaintiff attorney, Mr. Werner, WERNER.
Ready? Begin. Good morning, Mrs. Cole. My name is Victor Schwartz. I am an attorney with Stevens and Winters, and my office represents the Railroad Cafe in this lawsuit that you have filed. We're here today in a proceeding which is called a deposition. As you can see, it's a very informal setting, but you've taken an oath to tell the truth, and that oath is just as important here as if we were at trial with a judge and jury. Do you understand that?
Yes.
The court reporter is taking down everything that is said and what he hears. At the end of the proceedings, he will transcribe it and bind it into a booklet called a transcript. That transcript can be read to the jury at the time of trial to point out inconsistencies that you might have given in your testimony today from what you say in the witness box at trial. So it's important that you understand my question before you try to answer it.
Okay.
I don't want you to guess at the meaning of the question. If you don't understand it, tell me you don't understand the question. I'll try to make it more intelligible.
I understand.
Have you had an opportunity to speak with your attorney about these proceedings today?
Just briefly.
Do you feel you need more time before we start the proceedings?
No.
The reason I say that is, once we start the deposition, the rules don't allow you to confer with your attorney about any particular question. You can't confer with